Hey now, Greg Fitzsimmons here, your host. I want to thank you guys right out of the gate for all your support this week. I got trolled. I put up a video, and I think I talked about it on. Did I talk about it on Sunday Papers? No, I don't think so. Anyway, some fucking, I put up a video, and then Rogan and Segura and Kreischer and Shafir all reposted this video, and it got like millions of views. And then with that comes the hackers who said that the bit I put up was stolen from South Park. So I did a little research, and I put up a video the next day showing me doing the bit on Rogan, originally when I riffed it with him, April 2nd, 2020, cut to the South Park episode that I stole it from, coming out in September of 2020, 6 months later. So maybe I saw into the future and guessed the bit. Or perhaps comedians have similar premises sometimes. Could that be it? So I put out that correction, and guess what I got back from the trolls? We still believe you stole it. That's the kind of thinking that goes with 50% of Republicans still believing that Trump won the election, despite whatever. I'm not getting into it. But thank you. The reason I bring it up is that a lot of you guys on social media were there defending me and attacking the trolls. And that means a lot to me. It made me feel like I wasn't alone in this world. That even though I've left my mother's bosom and her warm embrace, that there is a family out there that would die for me. I don't know if you guys would die for me, but you'd certainly tap out a couple strokes on your keyboard to defend me when I was obviously... It's just such an ugly fucking project to be a troll. Why do it? Why do you want to harass people who are only trying to make the world a better place by making people laugh? That's all. There's no ulterior motive. I'm not trying to get laid. I'm not trying to get your money. Do you see a fucking Patreon set up on this podcast? I do shows for free sometimes, Just accept this gift. People just want to be heard. I blame society. It's not your fault, trolls. You're not being heard. You feel anonymous and meaningless, and life has made you feel like that. So you get online and you harass people that are, I don't know. It's fucking ugly. Anyway, good week though. Having a barbecue tonight. The great Mike Gibbons will be there, and Tom O'Neill, who wrote Chaos, who's been on the show, and my friend Gail Gilchrist will be there. She's a writer, TV writer, funny Texan. Worked out every day this week. I got back from my family's memorial down in Richmond, Virginia this past week. It was very moving. It was very connecting, soulful, seeing my cousins who I love very deeply. We had a lot of laughs. It was a tremendous amount of drinking. Not by me, but they certainly drank their share. And I did a road trip with my mother, my sister, and my brother. We drove from... did I talk about this on last week's podcast? I think I might have. Anyway, I can't remember when I did my podcast anymore. It's been such a blur. It's all been such a blur. Worked out, got back from that on Sunday night, took a run. Monday, took a massive bike ride with my wife. We take these long bike rides. There's a beach path that I would rival any beach path in terms of beauty. And so we ride down that for a couple hours. And then on Tuesday, we did a little yoga on the beach at sunset with the great Morgan, who is our yoga instructor. And then Wednesday, hit the gym, Gold's Gym, with all the fucking meathead, musclehead, steroided out lunatics. I feel like I feel like the guy in the Bazooka Joe comic that gets sand kicked on him. But I'm going to be just as big as them someday. You'll see. You'll see. And then, let's see, yesterday I played paddle tennis with my son for a couple hours. And now today I'm going to go hit the gym before this barbecue. So that was my plan. I said I'm going to start working out every day. I've been doing it. I feel 100% meditated today. It's all about mental health, people. Keep your fucking head together. And one thing I've talked about that will help you with this is therapy. And doing therapy, you might not think you can afford it, but find a way to afford it. And or find a place that's so cheap that it's affordable. Fitzdog Radio is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy, and it's something I truly believe in and use, by the way. I had not done therapy in a few years, and the pandemic had me down. My depression was kicking in, and I felt like I needed some support. Just at the time that BetterHelp reached out to me about coming on as a sponsor. So I have used their services. And I went through it like anybody else would. It was, nobody knew it was a sponsor or an advertiser working with them. And I ended up with a woman, Sarah, who is phenomenal, as good as any therapist I've ever had. You get on BetterHelp, and you fill out a questionnaire where they kind of hone in on what your needs are, what you're hoping to accomplish, and what your mental situation is, and then they pair you up with somebody who's got that skill set to help you. So it's not, otherwise you're throwing darts. If you go find a therapist, good luck. You might see 3 or 4 before you find somebody who has like the right, match for you. So it's a hard time. We're coming out of the craziest year of the century, of the last 100 years. This is the most intense thing that's happened, and you're going to feel it. And now coming out of it is almost as hard. Now you're asked to rejoin society after being a hermit for a year, and people are fucking stressing out about it. So get some help. I've lived with depression my whole life, and it's just very simple. When I'm doing therapy, I get things done, and I feel better. And that's it. They have financial help if you feel like you're going to struggle meeting this, but it's cheaper than any therapy I've ever had. Well, it's free for me, but I happen to know their rates. So get involved. You can text your therapist at any time. That's part of the package. You get on there, you make an appointment online. It's very simple. You go in there, you meet with them once a week or whatever you want to do. And so that's it. Free to change count. You don't like your therapist? Change. No charge. Just do it like that. Change. Find someone who's better or better suited for you. They're all good. Okay. Our listeners get 10% off their first month of online therapy at betterhelp.com/Fitzdog. That's betterhelp.com/Fitzdog. Do it. Just give it a shot. Trust me. You're going to be glad you did. All right. I feel good when I have a sponsor that I believe in. That not that I don't do any I don't believe in, but there's some that really strike a chord with me, and this is a great product. Okay, what else? Bitcoin is way down. I keep an eye on it because my chiropractor Patrick told me that I should buy Bitcoin back when it was at 30, and he goes, "Look, man, just buy it." He goes, "Just throw $20,000 in there and forget about it." I don't forget about $20,000. I don't know how much money you're making cracking people's backs, Patrick. So I didn't buy it because I did a lot of research. I was very close to buying it. And then I heard stories about people that have millions in Bitcoin, but they lost their password and it's fucking gone. They can't get it. There's no hotline. There's no administration. It's just all so weird. And then I was thinking, well, maybe it's, maybe people start using it to pay for stuff. No one's paying for shit with Bitcoin. Unless you're buying a fucking a hooker from Hungary or you're trying to have your wife whacked in Venezuela, then you're using Bitcoin. Otherwise, no one's using it. It's a pyramid scheme. And I've always avoided that shit. I've always avoided the easy way to make money that I could have done. My dad instilled in me being a little bit more conservative with money, and that's paid off in my life. I wasn't the kid who was selling drugs in high school. I did. I sold drugs a little bit. I sold some mescaline for a while, but I got out of the business early. Some of my friends did it, and they got in trouble with it. I didn't get the credit card that they were offering you in college when you were a freshman, and they said, here, get a Frisbee and a credit card. All my friends went into debt. I didn't get a fucking credit card. And then out of college, my friend Jenna Ray, she told me about this pyramid scheme where you put $1,000 in, and and then 3 other people buy in, and then you get their money, and you're out, and you made $3,000. I didn't do it. I thought about it, and I didn't do it. Didn't buy a timeshare in my 30s, and I'm not buying fucking Bitcoin. I'm going to earn my money. I'm going to go out and work hard, save it. I'm not going to retire. Here's the other thing people save money. I'm going to retire in El Salvador. You can, you can live right on the beach in El Salvador for like 80 cents a day. Really? How much is the funeral? How much is the ransom your family's going to have to pay? Now, I'm not knocking El Salvador. I'm just saying there's certain places that are probably not smart to retire in. El Salvador is one of them. The kids are getting nothing. I'm spending my fucking money. And I said that to my mom. She's got some money saved. And she's like, well, I want to make sure I leave you money. Don't leave me money. Leave yourself a round of golf. Leave yourself a vacation to France. Do some shit with your life. Enjoy it, which she is. I said, I expect nothing. I'll make my own goddamn money. You know what? Here's what I have as an investment. I got baseball cards. I didn't buy them. I had a guy give me baseball cards about 25 years ago as a thank you for driving him to some gigs. He gave me like 5 sheets of Mark McGwire rookie cards. And I'm not sure what they're worth now, but I think that I've got about maybe 30, 40, 50 of them. And I think, depends on which kind they are. They're in my aunt's basement in the Bronx right now, in a trunk. I got to get them because apparently there's different types of Mark McGwire rookie cards. And it can range anywhere from $150 a card up to thousands per card. If it's some kind of triple something. I don't know which kind he gave me. Oh, by the way, my buddy Jake Matera's got a new album out. He's a very funny comic out of Philly. And check out his new album. It's called A Soft One. I think it's on iTunes, Amazon Music. You might have to buy it. If you either buy it or check out if it's on iTunes for free. I'm not sure. Let me check. I'm going to check right now. Nah, fuck it. Just go look. Also, got some mail from you guys. Tim Hughes says, I have counted 24 albums that you have put in your top 5 albums of all time. Not sure how that math works. I get that comment from my daughter all the time because I love music. I get very passionate about music. And I like lists, and so I'm always saying things are in my top 5 or my top 10. So I decided to clear it up. I would pick out my 5 top albums. Now, with an asterisk, I decided not to include the Beatles, the Stones, Zeppelin, or Springsteen. Now, I'll include Springsteen. No Zeppelin, no Who, no Beatles. No Stones. Yeah. The four great British bands. Those goes without saying. You just those are in your rotation. But here's the 5 that mean the most to me and that I can listen to again and again and again. I realize they all have they're all heavy on lyrics. They're deeply spiritual. They move you. They make you think. They make you discover things about yourself. So number 1 is Astral Weeks by Van Morrison. It's a perfect album. These are all, I have a list of perfect albums. These are all on my list of perfect albums. The music, the singing, the instrumentation, the lyrics. Blue by Joni Mitchell. If you ever feel depressed, my advice to you is sometimes you got to go all the way down with it. Sometimes you try to fight your way back. You throw a couple jabs. You see whether or not you can break through. If not, my advice is put on some headphones, sit in a very comfortable chair, close your eyes, and listen to Blue by Joni Mitchell and go all the way down. There's going to be some tears. There's going to be a sense that you've just come out of a deep sleep, and then you're going to start to feel better. Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. Was not a Beach Boys fan when I first moved to LA. I'm a New Yorker. We turn our nose up at the Eagles and the Beach Boys and Jackson Browne and all of the California sounds. But then I got into, I forgot how I got into the Beach Boys, but it was not too long after I moved out here. And then I went deep on Pet Sounds, and now it's an album I listen to on a very regular basis. And I went and I saw Brian Wilson do the album with my daughter, who's a surfer and loves the Beach Boys. We had a daddy-daughter date night and went down to Orange County at an outdoor show and watched Brian Wilson play the fucking Pet Sounds. It was amazing. Number one might be Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan. That may be my favorite album of all time. It's a breakup album. It's a rageful album. It's a turning point for Dylan in a lot. Whatever. I'm not going to get deep into each one. And then Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. Bruce is my guy. I had a deep connection with him as a teenager growing up. My friends all thought Springsteen's for fags, they would say. I would never use that word, but they said it. And I quietly sat in my room and I played all my Springsteen albums over and over again. It meant a lot to me. And I think that album in particular is pretty tough to beat. All right. That's it. Should we do another piece of mail? This one comes from Joseph Pilioni. I heard you say before the Andy Dick episode of your podcast that you stood up to drop a deuce for a time in your life. That's correct. I used to straddle. I used to hang. I'd hang my ass and straddle the bowl when I was young. I was so afraid of toilet seats. This is when I was like 7 through 12. I think I shat standing up. This gentleman asks, you ever do a power dump? If you're not familiar, it's when you're taking a dump in a stall, you brace yourself by holding onto both sides of the stall at the top of the stall. Picture the pommel horse Olympic event. So he's talking about being up above the sides of the stall, being above it and holding onto the tops of it. You put your knees to your chest and aim your butt down. The point is to force the dump out as hard as you can. We did it in high school, sometimes doing tandem power dumps next to each other. It's a competitive style of power dumping. The contest is really based on first to dump and aim, obviously. So thank you, Joseph. That's an insight into a childhood that I'm glad I missed. I don't know what high school you went to. I know the bathroom smelled fucking terrible wherever you went. I'm guessing New Jersey. This sounds like a New Jersey activity. Tim Carter says, I met you at the Moore Theater in Seattle, opening for Joe Rogan in 2014. Rogan, I remember the show. That was a fun-ass show. Rogan did a meet and greet after the show. I stepped up to meet Joe, said what I had to say to Joe, and then he led me to the area behind where he was. I spoke to you briefly about Boston comedy, and then I felt like I needed to keep the line moving, but I left our conversation abruptly. I saw your head dip as I moved on, and I felt like a total piece of shit. Maybe I'm wrong, and you were relieved to be rid of me. Anyway, I've always felt super guilty about that moment. Tim, I won't forget that moment. I remember it was the back of the Moore Theater, and I remember you and I were talking, and then I remember you walked away. I'm kidding, Tim. I have no fucking idea. I barely remember that show. But that is very sweet that you think that you hurt me. But people, you know who hurts me? The people that get up in my face. The people that are super aggressive. Not the ones that are polite and know when to walk away, but the ones that keep the line standing there and they're drunk and they want to hug you too much. Quick hug, I'll take that. I'll take a nice quick hug from somebody. But no, Tim, you sound like you handled it just right. And thank you for coming to the show. And although you, I'm sure, came for Rogan, not me, but I think you walked away thinking about me. because that's the kind of performer I am. Some nicknames. Scott says, hey, Fitzdog, here in Australia, we have a habit of making names shorter. The current Prime Minister is Scott Morrison, shortened to ScoMo in the press. The opposition leader's name is Anthony Albanese. The press, it appears, are a bit reluctant to shorten his name. Anal doesn't have the same ring to it. Anthony Albanese. Anal. I put my money on that guy in the next election. Anal's going to win it because that's how simple people are in Australia. No offense, sir. Chad, in college, hanging out with a couple buddies, one of our roommates brings a girl back home. They are drunk. A short time later, she runs to the bathroom to puke, and in doing so, hits her head on the toilet, then the bathtub, toilet again, then floor. From then on, we called her Pinball. I don't know why. That's a tough one. That's a tough one from a few angles. First of all, your buddy shouldn't be bringing a girl home who's so drunk that she's throwing up. Nowadays, you could get thrown out of school for that shit. Or you could get Me Too'd or whatever. Watch out for that shit. Second of all, love Pinball. Love that fucking name. Hope it stuck. All right, let's get to my guest. Here's a guy who, honestly, I'd never met this guy before, even though we've been in the same circles for many years as stand-up comics and podcasters, and we have a lot of mutual friends, and I've always respected him, always thought he was super funny, so it was very cool that he came on the show. He's got a number of podcasts that are super successful, does them all out of South Dakota, where he lives with his family. And then he's got a bunch of hour-long specials from Comedy Central. He was a co-host on the Playboy Morning Show on Sirius, and he's done it all. I heard him on Joey Diaz's podcast. He was great. He's been on Conan a bunch of times, The Tonight Show, Ferguson, all of it. So here's a nice chat I had with the great Dan Cummins. Hey, Dan Cummins, what's happening, brother?
I'm good. I'm out here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It's sunny today. First day in a while. It's been sunny. It's always a mood booster.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I grew up in New York, and I never really experienced a lot of seasonal mood disorder. But now that I've lived in LA for 21 years, I can spend a weekend in a place like Idaho and come back dragging my ass. Do you ever get that?
Oh, yeah, I get it. When I was down in L.A., that was my favorite part by far was the weather. And then here, and we moved back here for like family reasons. But it's just every year, that January kind of through April gray, I just hate it so much. Finally, I started skiing. I don't know why it took me so long. I never tried skiing. And then actually, you get up above the clouds a lot of times and it's a blast. And I'm like, why did I wait till I was 43 years old to give this a go? Like, I've lived around the mountains my whole life. Like, no, stupid. I don't care.
No shit. Really?
Yeah. Just never did it. And then finally did it. And I'm like, I'm such an idiot. This is amazing. So that's something to look forward to now. But other than that, the gray.
I know it's a little bit like opiates. They're always around. And then one day you hurt your shoulder, you get a bottle, and you're like, what have I been missing all these years?
Exactly. Oh, man, I do remember. God, what painkiller was it? Oh, it was one of the opiates. I took it I had back surgery a long time ago, like 15 years ago. Oh, now I'm blanking on the kind it was. But I remember thinking, this is amazing. Long after the pain had stopped, I took the whole prescription, got the refill. I ran it all out. I'm like, this is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I got, I always took a lot of drugs, but then when I got shoulder surgery about 7 years ago, and the guy prescribed me, it started off with Percocet, and then it was hydrocodone.
Okay, yeah.
And then I had 3 different doctors prescribing me painkillers. I was taking that shit by the handful every day for probably was a good 6 or 7 months.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, dude, if I came to your house and I asked to use the restroom, I was
Right?
rifling through your fucking medicine cabinet.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I did not go that deep, man. What a bummer that something so fun has to be so addictive. Why can't you just have the fun? Why can't it be like, a candy you have here and there and then you can just like let it go? What a bummer.
I know. I love the people that get addicted to running. And it's like, wow, you figured it out, man. Because you get the same high. They say you get the same high, but you also occasionally shit your pants.
Right. And your knees are destroyed. And you're steadily destroying your knees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I love drugs.
What do you do for exercise?
I started doing, I got really burnt out. I, just went to the gym, did the standard guy who goes to the gym every once in a while thing of like the bench press, the squats, like all that. Did that same routine for years, never cared about diet. So I ended up with like this weird physique where I'd be kind of muscled, but also always have a gut. And just did that for years just because it was like a stress reliever more. And then I just got this thing called Fight Camp during COVID. And it's just a big heavy bag, a little base on it that you put in your basement or wherever, or just put anywhere in your apartment, doesn't matter. And then you get these boxing gloves and you get these sensors, these Bluetooth sensors that go into the wraps underneath the gloves that track your punches. It tracks the speed.
No shit. Really?
Yeah, and it's so fun because it's like the app is awesome and it has all these workouts. And so it's, I guess, like a workout class, but it's like cross training. 30 seconds of this punch and then, push-ups or squats or whatever. And you got some hyped up person moving you along. And it works for me because I don't like exercise classes because I don't like to be around that energy in person. But I found that if I'm at home and then every once in a while I can be like, shut the fuck up, like the person thing or, when they're like, come on, I know the bell's over, but 10 more. No, fuck you. I did my thing. Then I really like it because I get to talk back a little bit.
Yeah, you seem like a guy that has a lot of like personal discipline. You've got 7,000 podcasts and you're living in the middle of nowhere and you get it done. That takes like a certain personality type. Were you always kind of independent growing up?
I think it's called autism.
Do you have autism?
I've been wanting to get tested for a long time. I have a lot of people who tell me I have autism.
Yeah.
And based on the online tests, I'm like, oh yeah, it's just been more of like a recent thing where it's like, people tell you, oh, you're kind of weird, or like in relationships, romantic relationships, my whole life, I've gotten that my emotional response is not normal. That it's just not like I should be sad in this moment and I'm just not, or I should be angry in this moment and I'm just not. And I find others who are, I'm like, why can't you just control your emotions? And then I'm like, oh yeah, maybe because I don't have the same kind. Like herself. So I have always been more disciplined than the average comic because I take comfort in routines. Right. So like when I was on the road, even if I didn't need to work on new material, I like to. I like to get up and go somewhere and sit on my laptop and feel like I'm doing something. Mm-hmm. And then the podcast works well for me that way because, I enjoy the podcast that we're doing. So it's fun for me.
Do you think
I have to work on the rest of life?
Do you think that kind of personality has hindered relationships for you? Like, do you feel like your friendships could be deeper if you had more empathy?
Yeah, and it's not even like more empathy for sure, and then just more give a fuck about like reaching out and do like I like being on the computer too much. Yeah. Because it's like now I'm in a little world that I can control. Right. And this is, and no one's saying anything to me that's confusing, or I don't have to worry about like, am I giving them back what they need? I have to work much harder on the rest of life stuff, and luckily I got a great partner. My wife now, I was married once before. She's a really good communicator and she's got a lot of patience. And so I feel like I've come a long way in the communications department because of her.
Do you feel like that first marriage suffered because of your kind of limited emotional capacity?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, for sure. Also, I think she's even more that way more than I am. So it was like two people who are too similar in the wrong ways.
Right.
Yeah, and I felt like I was actually maybe more emotive than her that way. But for sure, my communication skills need work a lot of times now. But when I was younger, they were terrible. They were too much blunt honesty. I like to be really honest. Yeah. And I expect that from others, but it comes across to some people as very like, why the fuck would you say that? Like, You didn't need to say that. And I'm like, yeah, but it's true. And they're like, it doesn't matter that it's true. Just don't say it.
People say they want the truth, and they really don't want the truth. You know,
very rarely.
and if you are a truth talker, I think in the short term it can hurt you, but in the long run, people come to know that you are that way. And then when a compliment comes, they know you mean it. And when you feel something, they know that you must have really felt it. If you're even showing an inkling of an emotion, they're like, wow, I really did something for Dan there.
I think so. I think like other people, like when I'm around those personality types and I know they won't bullshit me. I mean, they might give like little attaboys or whatever like that, but when they really give a nice compliment and you know you earned it, that carries so much weight. Like I really, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. As opposed to someone who's like, no matter what, like my my dad, he's like that. When you talk to him about anything, it doesn't matter what you say you want to do. He'll just say, that's great. That's awesome. Like no matter, but it's totally meaningless. Yeah. Because you could be like, I just want to suck dicks behind the gas station and just see where that goes. That's great. Good for you. I hope you suck all the dicks. Like it doesn't matter. Yeah. Just I hope you suck more dicks than anyone's ever sucked behind that trash can. That's fantastic. Right. And
that's amazing. And so when your dad, do you think that you had more freedom than other kids? Like if you said, can I stay out late? And he would say that's fine.
No, growing up, he's like that with like, what do you want to do with your life or what you're doing now? But no, growing, I had a weird childhood growing up. He's with him. I split time between my mom and my dad. And my mom also was kind of like, do whatever you want to do in the house, as far as like watch what you want to watch, have friends come over, but super worried about parties. I grew up in a tiny town, 400 people in Idaho. And my mom was so paranoid about me getting somebody pregnant and getting stuck in that town, because I think that's kind of what happened to her. And so it was like very paranoid about parties. Yeah. Don't do any of that.
Did she get pregnant before she was married?
Yeah. Or right around the exact same time. But she got married like right out of high school. Yeah. And then I was born the following spring.
Wow.
Like really, and then her mom had done the same. And that worked out with her mom, but not as much with her. And then my dad's always gravitated to who he's with. Like this is marriage number 4, and he's kind of a different person somewhat with each of them. And the stepmom I had in high school was legitimately insane. Like I think she was schizophrenic or something. Her mom was schizophrenic. And so high school was so weird. He was kind of into religion again a little bit, but also into weird new agey stuff. And I was always grounded for weird paranoid reasons. Like it's hard to explain, but like I was grounded about half of my last 2 years of high school for stuff like putting the dishes in the wrong spot.
Oh no, really?
Oh yeah, but it was like this weird thing. I did sneak out. Yeah. I did sneak out. I also was a juvenile delinquent. I also snuck out and stole things and fucking set fires. That was insane.
But you never got anyone pregnant.
But I never got anyone pregnant.
How did that affect you sexually as a teenager? Were you super cautious with condoms, or did you feel weird about sex?
I was so weird about sex and like so worried about that. I mean, and also I was super awkward and just no confidence with girls. I had a crazy growth spurt. I was just looking back, it's funny. At the time, I thought girls didn't like me, the girls I liked. Looking back, I can see that they did, but nothing clicked for me. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's flirting. Like I was so fucking stupid that way. Like it took a long time for me to figure it out. But also really worried. Like, like when a girl would start to like me. Like I remember actually going to see a girl as probably a junior in high school, she was at some other girl's house. The parents weren't there. They were wanted to watch movies in the dark under the blankets. A friend of mine had dated her. I knew what was probably going to happen. And he started talking up. And then I made this random decision where I'm like, all right, man, I don't need to go. And I just like didn't go see her. I did that a few times. Like the situation was right there to have sex or something. And I intentionally was like, God, I get freaked out and then just do the opposite. And I did that to the point that a lot of people thought I was gay. Yeah. I was just weird and awkward.
And also sucking the dicks behind the gas station.
And sucking the dick behind the gas. a lot of the guys' dicks who I was sucking, they were like, you're pretty gay, like right now.
I have found that when a guy, it depends.
Right.
If he's got the crown deep in his throat and he's playing with the balls, I'm like, man, you're gay. You're gay. Yeah.
Right. I've sucked a lot of guys' dicks like that, where I'm like, that would, I could just get that vibe that like, man, they just thought the way I was doing it, the passion I was putting into it was pretty gay.
Yeah. I mean, if you're crossing it off your to-do list, everyone's got a bucket list. And if it's a dare or a bucket list thing, that's one thing. But, I almost did it once when I was in college. I was like, I think I was a junior, and I was never like attracted to guys, but I was also an experimenter. I had all different kinds of sex and three ways and you name it.
Oh my God.
Be careful. I got to be careful what I say because my mother now listens to my podcast.
Sweet. Yeah.
Isn't that great?
You know what? I did a terrible joke about my mom on my last special, knowing I could do it because she wouldn't watch it, and that would kind of be part of the joke. I'm waiting for the payoff. Where I did a joke where I actually said, I'm like, if my mom doesn't like that, I'm like, whatever, my mom can suck my dick. And then I go on about how it's okay to laugh at that because she's never going to hear this. Yeah. That came out a little over a year ago. She's never brought it up. So I think I'm good.
It. Yeah.
I can say whatever I want. But I would be weirded out if my mom listened to my podcast.
Yeah, it's really, I think my sister set it up on her phone for her when she got an iPhone. And
You're like, great.
And she listens nonstop. And it's hindered me as an artist. Are we artists?
I think so. I think some of us. I think so. I think you're an artist. I think you have to be torn because, that's nice that your mom supports and is very interested in what you do. Yeah. But also, you're not an incredibly clean comic, and you will say more provocative things, and so that's got to be a bummer on that end. But does she say anything? Does she say like, "Why do you do that?" And she's like, why do you do that?
No, she keeps it inside. She keeps it. I wrote a book where I laid it all out. And I actually wrote in my book the story about almost blowing a guy. I went into the woods drunk in the brambles of Boston, the gay area of Boston. And I was gonna do it. I just to do it. Just
right. Like, what does that feel like? Sure. You only live once.
I was scared, but I was like, I wonder what it's like. And, maybe all these years I've been lying to myself. Maybe I am gay. There's only one way to find out.
Right. What stopped you?
Seeing it. This guy pulled it out. He whipped it out. But the worst part was, Dan, he pulled it out of his fly, and then he pulled his balls out. And it was sitting there, and it looked like a bald guy with hairy shoulders, and it was just staring at me. And I immediately said, I am not gay. I am not interested in this penis. And I pushed him.
You're like, no, thank you.
He fell down, and then he ran into the woods with his little dick flopping around, and I stumbled out of the woods, and I was like, well, I guess I'm not gay.
Yeah, so you really know more than most people will ever know.
Yes.
Right? Like you went right up to the precipice there where you're like, can I? And you just know. Because I've wondered when I was younger, because I've had a lot of gay friends, and I love the company of gay men. I find them very fun.
They're the
in
best.
General. And
everybody loves gay men. Women love gay men. Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh man, and when I would go work, like the Punchline in San Francisco, for years, I would look forward to those weeks because I would, I think I fit like an archetype for gay men, especially with the beard, and I'm a little bit of a bigger guy, like the bear.
The bear,
and so I would get checked out all the time, and I'm like, this is fantastic. That would be so nice to have all this desire where and way more than I ever noticed from women. So I'm like, this is fucking great.
Yeah.
But then I would really put myself in my head. I'm like, okay, my friend Eddie, one of my best friends in my whole life. Eddie's gay. We've always gotten along, so well. I'm like, could I suck Eddie's dick? Like, can I put it in my mouth? And that's where it stops for me. Where I'm like, nah, I just don't want it.
Right.
I don't want it. I can hug Eddie. I mean, we've slept in the same bed. I can snuggle up with Eddie.
You snuggle with him?
I could. Actually, one time it was not intentional. I spent, but this is how comfortable I am. Spent the night there. We crashed in the same bed. I woke up and I was Little Spoon, but it didn't freak me out because he wasn't trying to do this. Like, that's Eddie. I'm Eddie's Little Spoon.
Yeah.
But I don't. But if there would have been a boner, really rubbing up against my butt, then I'd be like, nah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't care for that.
Yeah.
So but it is good to know. It is good to
Well, you have to
some
have
people won't examine.
men at a certain age have some homoerotic energy, you know, like it's not gay energy, but it's like you're just so sexually, you've just got so much testosterone pumping through you. And also there's an excitement about life. You're 19, you're 20 years old. And I had this friend in college, and we used to kiss each other on the lips, like in crowded bars. We'd walk up and kiss each other on the lips. We'd hold hands. And we were fucking with people, but we didn't give a shit, you know?
I had a friend, my friend Dallas, same thing. We'd see him at a party, give him a kiss on the lips.
Yeah.
And we just thought it was funny, and we thought it was funny. I've always been the kind of person, I think it's funny to weird people out.
Yes.
Because like I did that, you know, but I also, you know, like on the flip without dudes, like grew out a Fu Manchu and a hardcore mullet, and would wear aviator sunglasses and like trucker hats and like white beater tank tops to parties and hang around the keg and intentionally stare at girls to creep them out because my friends thought it was fucking hilarious, which I thought it was. And it worked. They were creeped out.
Yeah, it worked. You never got laid. It worked.
That summer I did not get laid. It was all laughs. A lot of laughs, no sex that summer.
You did it for the boys. I did that once. One Halloween, I went to a party, and I was like maybe 15, and I dressed as a homemade abortion, and I had on a white T-shirt with blood on it, ketchup on my face, and I had a hanger around my neck.
Whoa!
And I did it for the boys because no girl talked to me. It was Christmas before another girl talked to me after that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I had one friend in college. I admire his dedication to this day. I'm shocked that he ended up getting married, having kids later on, but I was like, this guy's going to be alone forever because everything was for the joke. I mean, and he would just take it so far.
Right.
He shaved his head into like the Friar Tuck haircut. Like he grew his hair out, then shaved just the top. So like the male pattern, but then left the sides like thick, and he's kind of an odd looking guy anyway. So he looked like a monk. He looked like like an old school monk, and he did that for an entire semester.
No shit.
And people already thought he was weird because he was weird, and he just did not give a fuck. Him and his brother. Oh my God, the two of them. I never got to meet their parents, but like his brother went to a different college, would come to Gonzaga where I went sometimes, and neither one of them had an ounce of give a fuck in them.
Right.
And I just remember thinking, like, who raised you? Like, how do you get that?
It's like, you ever watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
No, I need to.
There's this family that's like that. They're just fucking they're like from another planet. Yeah, I think it's that fine line as a teenager between pleasing your friends, because I was the guy that I would hang off my friend's 6th floor apartment by my knees out the window.
Oh my God.
I would do flips off 10-foot walls.
Yeah.
I would crazy shit. But then it cost me pussy for sure.
Just being that crazy guy. Oh my God. I had a friend like you named Chris he would do those physical stunts.
Yeah.
And I was too much of a worrier, even as a teenager, where I'm like, oh dude, you're going to hurt yourself. And he would do like run off a roof and do a full flip and then dive into a 5-foot pool of water. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he would just do stuff like that like it was nothing. Just, oh man. But everybody loved it.
My son's best friend is like that, and he and I have become, he's like a second son to me now, because he's having a lot of problems. He's got ADD, dyslexia, he's got the whole cocktail of fucked up stuff. Yeah. And so he's always the guy that's showing off, and I try to talk to him about it and say, look, make sure when you're doing it for yourself and not for other people. Oh. You know, it's great. I mean, some of my best times of my life were like, me and my brother was like me too. And we're 13 months apart. Okay. And we went to a regatta. You know what a regatta is?
No.
It's a crew race. You know, rowing
Oh,
team.
Yeah. We had a crew team at Gonzaga. Yeah, okay.
So we were up in Boston. I went to college in Boston. And they have the regatta on the Charles River, and it's very snooty. Because it's all these wasps, and they all come up from Connecticut and Massachusetts, and they have picnic baskets, and they sit on the grass and they watch the crew. And it's like 100,000 people show up.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So me and my brother got a bottle of tequila, and we're walking along, and then this beautiful like golden retriever, like the waspy classic golden retriever. He's got the bandana around his neck, and the family's sitting there with J. Crew on, and the dog starts jumping on my brother, and he starts dry humping my brother's leg. So my brother wraps his arms around the dog, falls down on the ground, and starts dry humping the dog back, and they're dry humping each other, and the family's fucking screaming, and there's like 8 of us, and we're on the ground. It was fucking classic.
God, that is so funny. That is such a funny visual. So your brother has that just don't care kind of in him too much.
We both used to get arrested all the time.
Okay.
I pulled him out of a pad. We were at a bar in Boston, and we started spitting beer at each other, which landed on other people, and a fight started. So this big fight happened. The bouncers drag us out. The cops are out there, and they put 3 guys in a paddy wagon, and they put my brother in, and I like physically grabbed him out of the paddy wagon, and we fucking ran.
Oh my God, you got away?
We got away.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love those random stupid arrests. I did some of those too when I was like college, high school, college, like right out of college. And then I don't know how often you got caught, but like when I would get caught, I mean, I did run away, and I got away with some of them. But then sometimes I was just like, whatever. And I would surprise them by not trying to get out of it at all. Like I remember I got arrested for like city theft, malicious mischief, this stupid drunken rampage. And then,
how old were you?
Oh, this one I was 22, 23, somewhere in there. I was right out of college, and like 3 cars, pulled up, and I was just like laughing, and I just sat down, and then like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm fucking trashed. And just like just full disclosure, everything. And they were like mad, but then it diffused their anger. Right. They're like, you're yelling. I was like, nah, I know. Yep. I did that. And then when I went to the courthouse, you have to plead not guilty or guilty. And there was like a bunch of us just doing a big group of pleas. And I was one of the last people to go, and everyone else, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. And then I was just like, yeah, guilty. And then they read the thing. Oh yeah, guilty. Yeah. And like the court appointed person was like, that's hilarious. Like she was amused. She's like, no one is just so casual about it. I'm like, whatever, I did it. It's not like it was a felony. It's not like I was worried about going to prison. I'm like, whatever, give me some citations and I can go on with my life.
That shit stays on your record though, man. It's popped up on me. I've been arrested. I spent the weekend in jail twice, and I've been arrested a couple other times where I didn't have to go to jail. Yeah. And so I went, me and my friend Mike Gibbons, who's my partner on my Sunday Papers podcast.
Yeah.
I only have 3. I feel lazy. I know
you have a lot of podcasts as well, and you've been podcasting a long time. I mean, it's inspirational, and it's like, and you've made it work. It's cool. I love seeing it. And you also, with your writing career and everything, I mean, you're clearly very organized yourself. I mean, especially on the writing side with the podcast, that's not like stand up. That's not like dicking around at a coffee shop and being like, put in a long day. Right. That's like real hours. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I think my discipline comes from fear. I'm very driven by, I don't want to fail.
I get it. Yeah.
I feel like, I think I was raised by my parents to, feel guilty if I'm lazy, but at the same time, I am lazy. So it's this battle, and it never feels like I've done enough. And so one of the things I've tried to do with my kids is to raise them to feel that you shouldn't feel like you're at a deficit all the time. I was raised to feel like I was in a deficit, and I had to fight my way out constantly. So everything's been a fear-based drive for me.
And I get that too. But mine's always like fear of being broke, fear of like losing it all, fear of just like.
Were you a poor kid?
Yeah. We were pretty poor growing up, and then kind of like I had this dual thing where my mom's dad, who was like a father figure to me, he didn't have nobody in my family had college educations. Like I was the first person in the whole tree to ever go.
Oh, nice.
And so but my grandpa, like he. He worked at the sawmill. He worked in construction. He did like the basic things, but he also worked on the weekends, like building rentals, like literally building rentals. And my grandma worked at the post office, but they never made that much money in any given year, but they built a very nice life for themselves, and they didn't waste it. They were smart. They invested. I'd watch him watch the 5 o'clock news and see the little ticker on the bottom all those years ago. Yeah. And that's how people would look at their stocks, going up and down.
Right.
And then I saw that contrasted with my dad, who my dad was is a contractor. He's about to retire, but like contractor. And then like he would make more money in some years, but he was always broke and always like we never had. And like, any money that would come would just be gone. He would just blow it.
Where was the money going?
That is a mystery. There's a lot of mysteries.
Really?
We wonder as a family often where the money went in various points. He's a mysterious guy. I mean, my dad, we could talk for, he's like most random stuff. He was working in Papua New Guinea years ago, and just the shit he'll say casually. He was like a remote construction job.
Yeah.
And then he's just talking about how things are going, kind of checking in. And then he starts to tell us that the story leads to him he's in jail over there, but not because he did anything wrong, but because some local tribesmen that he got into a beef with wanted to murder him, and they were keeping him in there for his own safety because they thought he would for sure be killed. But like, I think based on knowing my dad, those people were one of many people who have wanted to kill him over the years. Like this is not an isolated incident. But my paranoia comes from, that I saw him at like 60 years old with nothing, like, multiple divorces and doesn't have any money. And so I have overworked over the years, like hoarding and just because I'm like, oh my God, I want this other reality, not this reality. But yeah, so now, but I have to work on with my kids now. I don't want them to be workaholics.
Yeah, but you're divorced, man. So that means you're still giving away a lot of money, huh?
No. We worked it out. She actually was more of the breadwinner.
Nice.
And still is. And so I lost, what was it? Just being candid, I lost out on retirement stuff. I lost out on most of the retirement stuff I'd helped save for that, but didn't have to do alimony. And then we just, child support, we moved here to have the kids half time, my wife and I.
Right.
So it's a straight, like we split everything. Yeah. So lucky, I don't know, hate to use the word lucky, but kind of lucky that way, I guess.
And it's amicable. You guys are good?
It's amicable. We, it's like, it's funny. Like I've joked about that word before. I mean, there's a reason you get divorced. So it's not like every once in a while you'll find those people who it's like, oh, they're still my best friend. And no part of me understands that. Like they hang out all the time. We're not hanging out.
Right.
But we're also not like, I don't think, rooting for the other person's, just demise.
Yeah.
It seems comfortable when we're around each other. Yeah.
When you remarried, how much younger was your second wife than your first wife?
She, let's see, 7 years.
That's reasonable.
I think so. 7 years.
That's good. Yeah. More than that, and you're not talking to the ex-wife.
I know. That is such a thing where, when the new wife's like, 20 years. I like it when the new wife is like 20 years younger and looks a lot like the first wife when they were 20. Right. That's such a weird insult.
Yeah. It's like you just upgraded the software. You got the new download.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. My ex did a weird thing. She actually, and he's actually a really nice guy. I actually get along with him really well. But she ended up, and I've had a lot of people say that, like she ended up remarrying to a guy who's a little bit older than me, but who looks a lot like me. Uh-huh. And that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like see him and then it's like, and we'll make the same choices. Like I had just gotten like a new truck a couple years ago, got like a Ford F-150. And then I pull up over at my kid's house and then he's in the driveway with his Ford F-150. I'm like, and I'm like this, like literally the exact same model of F-150. I'm like, what? We look similar. And I'm like,
dude, I wonder if he's throwing the same moves on her. You ever wonder if he's got the same playbook as you?
I know. It's hard not to wonder those things.
I was dating a girl for a few years in college, 2 or 3 years, and she was great. I really loved the shit out of her. Yeah. And she left me for a guy. She didn't leave me. I used to cheat on her a lot. Oh. So
okay, yeah.
And it was bad. It was bad. Yeah. And we used to break up and get back together and break up. And then finally she just started dating this other guy. And I'm only 5'8". He was shorter than me. His name was Craig instead of Greg. He tried to be funny, but like all of our friends were like, he's never funny. He tries and he's not. And so I've always looked at her like, oh my God, you have a cardboard cutout of me.
Right. That's what I was thinking of, like a Xerox copy. It's like she got the copied it's not, the resolution isn't the same.
Yeah.
It's just not quite that. And then sorry, behind you, I just have to ask, because I've been in a Stevie Ray Vaughan loop, the Hendrix poster behind. Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan? Who's the better guitarist?
Hendrix. I mean, I think technically Stevie Ray may be a little bit more facile or fast. But I feel like he's more purely blues based.
Yes.
And I think that Jimmy was able to take a fantastical journey down the fretboard that was just mystical.
Yeah, that psychedelic rock. Yeah. And he did lay the groundwork for Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yes. I only asked because I was literally just talking to my son about that, my 15-year-old, yesterday.
Yeah, I've seen people go note for note on Jimmy's jams, but so you did what he did, but he did it. He thought of it.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, when you listen to Little Wing, it's just like, it's like one of those moments in
mystical
art where you go like, where there's, you know, the Mona Lisa and there's, you know, the Fifth Symphony, and then you hear something like Little Wing, and you're just like, yeah, this is God speaking to somebody through their art.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that reaction. I got pulled back into a Stevie Ray Vaughan wormhole where I believe the song title is Texas Flood, but it was a live version. And, you know, and he's playing with his eyes closed like he always would do and everything. But there was just like this extra level of emotion behind it that just, I love it when I see music or something or watch it or hear it. It gives me the chills.
Yeah.
And I had that reaction. I'm like, oh, yeah. So I've been like a wormhole like the past week re-listening to all his stuff. But there's only a few artists that have done that for me where like you see their stuff and you're like, you are just, it's not about the notes. I was talking to my son about that. Same thing. It's like, yes, there's other people, you know, speaking of guitar specifically, some metal people who can technically be faster. They can do some different things. But even in the metal world, I see like Eddie Van Halen, some of his early stuff, and I'm like, fast. And also there's just that little X factor, that little, they've tapped into something.
Exactly.
And you can't teach that.
No.
You know?
And you know, with Stevie Ray, I had, you know, Stephen Tobolowsky, the actor, he was in, he was in Ghostbusters and Groundhog Day. He's the bald guy.
Yes.
You know him, and you've seen him in a million things. Yeah. Anyway, he grew up in Texas. He grew up in Texas in the same town as Stevie Ray Vaughan. So he had a band, and they were about to do a session, and their lead guitarist, well, I don't know what happened, if the guy flaked out or he got sick or whatever, but it was like their first demo recording, and they didn't have a guitar player. And so one of them goes, what about so-and-so Ray Vaughan's little brother? He's supposed to be amazing. And they're like, he's...
Jimmy's brother, yeah.
They're like, he's 14 years old. And they're like, I'm telling you, the guy's apparently really good. So he shows up at the recording studio, fucking 14 years old. Wow. And they show him the chord structure. They play it. He goes fucking ballistic. And all of a sudden, the producers start telling people in the other studios to come in because you got to see this kid.
Wow.
They said, can you play the song again? He goes, yeah, I'll play it again. Does a completely different take on it. Can you do it again? Does another take on it. Now there's about 20 people stuffed into the recording studio watching this 14-year-old kid, and he has the recordings. Stephen Tobolowsky. I got to get them. He said he'd send them to me.
Just a savant. I mean... It is interesting. It's like when you see something like that, like I imagine part of his reaction was like, you know, as good as he thought he was and maybe was really good at music, you're like, oh, shoot, but I'm not that. Yeah. Like I remember being in a little garage band in college and I was playing guitar all the time. I got really into guitar, you know, later in life, but I was like, I would practice hours a day, work on these scales, you know, try so hard. And then randomly at one party, another guitarist in our little band, his friend stopped by and was like, hey, man, can I just see your guitar and just, you know, jam a little bit? And then he started ripping, you know, out these, like, it was like Mike McCready kind of riffs or, you know, something. And Stone got like some old Pearl Jam stuff. But I remember that was the moment for me with guitar. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll never be that.
Yeah.
Like I can practice all I want and I can get technically, you know, better, but I won't be that.
Right. You
know, there's just those certain people. I remember being super into basketball when I was a kid. I was so into basketball, you know, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. And then I went to go live with my dad from Littletown, Idaho to Las Vegas. And I went to this Nike camp. And I went in all cocky, like I can't wait to play with these, you know, real people. And then literally that day was the day that I was just like, nope, never going any further with basketball.
Yeah.
Okay. They get it in a way I will never get it.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
I've never played with black kids before. That's this is a different experience.
I remember I was the only, it was like 10 of us on this little camp. All of the other 9 could dunk.
Yeah.
And I think I was barely touching the net.
And this was like 9th grade?
Yeah. This is going into 9th grade. I mean, they were phenomenal.
Yeah. Have you ever felt like that with a comedian? Have you ever seen a comedian go on stage and then kind of go, wow, I'm good, I work hard, but that guy has something I'll never be able to do what he just did?
You know, it's like, I'm trying to think of like working. I mean, I didn't come up in New York or LA. So I got lucky in that sense that, thank God for me looking back, that I wasn't working with the heavyweights, right away on like these showcase shows. So I don't have the same amount of live exposure as like you would, or like so many comics would, as far as like being in these same, in the room with them.
Yeah.
But I've seen other people's, well, like Chris Rock, or some of Carlin's stuff, where Chappelle stuff. I hesitate, like, is this what I do and I want to be competitive? I always want to think like I could get there.
Right.
But now I've been doing it like, 21 years almost. And I'm like, well, if you haven't figured it out by now, like some of this level, are you going to? That little voice does kind of creep in. Now I'm more like, comfortable being niche. But there's like, certain, I like Chappelle, when I've seen some of the stuff, I'm like, I don't, whatever that kind of comedy is, it's like, probably not. And Hicks, actually, okay, that's the one for me because of the age he died. Like Hicks, the kind of comedy he was doing in his 20s.
Yeah.
No matter how hard I would have worked in my 20s, and I did work really hard.
Yeah.
I couldn't touch it. It was just.
Yeah, he had a brain and he had a soul. That was the thing about his stand-up. He talked about, existential stuff. He talked about spirituality. He talked about tripping on drugs, and his politics was very unique. It was his own thoughts, and
he painted the picture so well. His mechanics were so good on top of that soul.
Yeah.
Like his bits were so well constructed. I remember like, when I started, there was a lot of jokes about, it was Stanhope at that time, it was like the carrying the torch for Hicks, and that he had ruined open mic scenes. Because in the Northwest, there was a lot of people infatuated with, dark comedy, Stanhope, Hicks, that kind of stuff. But they didn't understand the mechanics. They just saw, that guy's talking about abortion.
Right.
And it's like they would go talk about those things and just be fucking heinous. It would just be unbearable to listen. It's like, no, you idiot. You made no attempt to craft your horrific point into some kind of comedy. It's like Hicks, no matter what he was talking about, there was always a joke there. And there was always funny.
I was talking to Andrew Santino the other day about Mark Maron. Maron is very much like in the Hicks vein. He was a guy that has been compared to him a lot, and really talks about real shit, and he does it in a way. But he is a club comic first and foremost. He knows how to write a joke. He knows what rhythm is. He knows what structure is, and then within that, he goes into topics that are not meant for amateurs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Those are the masters. I always thought like if comedy could be graded like gymnastics, where, it's like, did you pull off your routine? Yes, that's important. But how difficult was your routine?
Yeah.
I remember thinking that like, I remember the first person I saw live that made me think about that actually was, and I feel like his name doesn't get brought up enough this way, is Daniel Tosh.
Yeah.
That I saw him when he was younger doing some really unlikable bits. Like the spirit of the bit was mean.
Right.
And it's like, but he was still making this audience who you could tell was uncomfortable with the premise, laugh really hard. And I'm like, oh, wow. That was like the first time I just seen it, like live.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's impressive,
there's some shade of variance between Anthony Jeselnik and Tosh. There's something about Jeselnik. He's darker. But he's more likable. There's something in the millimeter of a smile that he gives after certain jokes. He doesn't give you much. He just gives you a little bit. And it just kind of redeems what he's saying. Whereas with Tosh, I find that it feels mean-spirited on top of being really vile comedy. And which is not to... I'm not shitting on
Right.
Tosh.
No.
I think he's really great, but
Yeah.
there's something that Jeselnik does that I think people can connect to more.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is, I mean, maybe some of it is like, he's a bit more of a character in some ways with like the one-liners. But then Tosh, like my read on Tosh has always been, and just talking to that, he's IQ-wise, he is very, very intelligent.
Yeah.
And he also has that don't give a fuck in him. And I'm just amused when I watch him because like I'm like, oh yeah, you truly don't care if the audience likes this.
No, he doesn't care. Yeah.
Right. Like you don't have that inside of you. And like, and some people will pick that up where it's like, and like, you can tell, like watching him that like he has disdain for a lot of the audience and doesn't care that they pick it up.
Yes.
But he's so goddamn funny with his like craft that it he's able to compensate for that.
Right.
I remember thinking like early on that if he did care and wanted to be more likable and more sociable, that as big as his career has been, it could have been even much bigger.
Yeah.
Like if he want like that kind of
he could have made some adjustments.
To be more charismatic, but just really. But I remember just thinking on a technical level, I found that so impressive. Where like just because maybe the random audience member wouldn't understand how hard it is to pull that off, to be good looking, to be cocky, have like an arrogance about you, like have all these kind of things that a lot of people just find inherently unlikable.
And then make
kill.
Make your topics be like fat chicks.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
The most unlikable topics.
Yeah, he was just embracing.
Still have it work.
He was embracing being. I mean, talk about like a straight white male being sort of villainized right now. He owns it.
Yeah, and there's a lesson there too that I find. It's like I think why it works for him too is you're never going to get an apology. Like I think it's so committed to the I don't fucking care that people don't expect it.
Yeah.
Like it would be almost so absurd for cancel culture to come after Tosh because he's said so many heinous things for so long. And I think people would know that he wouldn't really care if he got fired. Like he's already made so much money.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think I'm putting words in his mouth. I have no idea. I'm guessing he wouldn't really care. He would just, probably on Instagram show you on his fucking big boat or on his jet skis being like, yeah, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Like life's great. I'm still handsome and I still got a lot of money.
Right. I fly private jets. Yeah, he's done it. My friend co-created Tosh.0 with him. Mike Gibbons, who I mentioned earlier.
Oh, Mike Gibbons. Oh, sorry. I was Gosling was brought in. I think maybe later then, right, to help run it.
Yeah, Gibbons was there creating the pilot, and I think he might have only done the first season, and then he left to go do a sitcom after that. And I think it might have been on bad terms. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think they didn't want him to leave.
Oh, okay. Well, man, he's that's great. That's great that I'm guessing if he, got the creator thing early on, locked that in, he's still getting a check. So that's pretty sweet. I don't
know. I have no idea. He drives a nice car.
I'm pretty ignorant to like some of the money that comes in from like writers and stuff. But I do remember I hosted some little show on Playboy randomly a couple years ago. I was like, I couldn't believe when I auditioned that it even existed. I'm like, oh, people still watch Playboy? Oh, okay. And we got to interview some random people, and one was Spike. Wasn't
Ferriston?
Jones? Yes. Yeah, the guy from Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was talking with somebody else off camera about his car collection.
Right.
In the Santa Monica airport.
Yeah, he collects Porsches.
Right. Yeah. And has storage for them in like the Santa Monica airport. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Yeah. I just started trying to think of like how much it would cost to have that life. And I'm like, he is worth a lot of millions.
Yeah. And speaking of Spike Ferriston, he had a TV show that Mike Gibbons also created. That was on Fox. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so Mike Gibbons.
Fucking Mike Gibbons sitting on a lot of money.
Yep. Not from our podcast, but from creating his shows.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, good for them. I love, man, writing. It's like I tried to sell spec scripts and all that for a while. I never sold anything. My buddy of mine, Tom Saunders, I got to write for a couple episodes of a show he did for like it's like some weird Canadian sitcom.
Yeah.
And then I was just done. I had done it for so many years and failed every single time that when I got like 2 episodes in, it just felt like I could check the box, and I'm like, at least it went somewhere. And I just got a check, and then I'm like, I'm fucking done. It was too much for me.
Right.
I didn't have enough success to keep going.
But you're like a pioneer, because a lot of comics now are getting off the grid and they're moving to, like Theo Vaughn is living in Nashville now, and you got a bunch of guys that went to Austin, and you got Duncan Trussell's in North Carolina.
Okay.
Ari Shaffir was in Argentina for a year.
Yeah.
But you were sort of doing that before other guys did. You kind of went like, I can do my podcast from anywhere. I can do my stand-up out of anywhere.
Well, I would love to say that like I did it with all this confidence, but it was for family reasons. It was to spend more time with my son and daughter. It was not career-based. It was my son, a couple years after the divorce, when they were younger, they were coming down to LA. I was, every month I would either go up and be with them for a week or have them come down. And it was getting harder to do that with his school as he got further into grade school.
Right.
And then he wanted to come down more. And I'm like, I don't want to mess things up. Like, I don't want to put him through any kind of custody battle, anything like that. And my wife, who worked in production for 10 years in LA, we both decided just to kind of say, well, all right, there goes our careers. And then come up to Idaho. We'd save some money to get like a house. But I was real nervous. I had just started Time Suck a couple months before, and it was making no money. But I don't think it would have worked if I wouldn't have come up here. Because it was that back against the wall thing and the fear. And I worked so hard. I worked so many hours the first couple of years on these podcasts. I still put in a lot of hours, but I put in like insane hours, making them as good as I can, thinking of how to market, like really, can we make this work? And then thank God it did. And then now it's amazing. Now it's amazing where it's like, now we have a really good base of fans. We have a good relationship with like an ad agency, like all the things.
Yep.
And now it looks awesome. Like in hindsight, it's like, oh, what a great decision. But I was scared shitless when we first, my wife ended up, she worked in real estate when we first went up here. And I was so nervous. I was getting ready to, I was thinking like, okay, if it doesn't get better in the next year or two, maybe I can also work in real estate. Like you can build those relationships and then I can come over there, because I was at that point stand-up wise where I just hadn't sold, I wasn't selling tickets. I wasn't selling enough tickets to be important to the clubs.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, as I got into my 40s and I'm not selling any tickets, I'm like, there was that worry of like, this can't be my primary source of income. Like, how much longer are they going to keep booking me for $1,500 or $2,000?
Yeah.
And I was sweating it. And then people started showing up from the podcasts. They started showing up with their merch. They started yelling things from the crowd. I'm like, oh, thank God. It was so surreal.
All right.
And then now it's, now it's just a whole different thing where now it's that weird thing where we were saying like no to certain clubs recently. And it's a weird thing where we did some alt venues too. Mm-hmm. And I always had to do whatever the clubs asked because I was so afraid of getting rebooked.
Yeah.
And not that I want to be a diva now, because I personality wise don't want it, but it is interesting to like, once you have a fan base, you're like, oh, okay, we don't actually have to work the club in that market. We could work this rock club. We could work this other alternative space. And oh, now it's just like, I thank the fans every week. Like, thanks for letting me have a job. Thanks for letting me.
Well, what's amazing is that once you have that fan base, once you have the podcast fan base, you can sort of, draw them to whether you wrote a book or whether you have a new special or whether you have some merch or whether you want to launch another podcast or whether, and they look at it now, if they're thinking about giving you a 1 hour special, they want to see your social media numbers and they want to see, how well your podcast is doing. That they don't give a fuck who the funniest comic is anymore.
Oh, no.
It's all quantifiable. That's how they give out the spec. Well, and obviously they're trying to diversify, which is good.
Right. There'll be passion projects. Each exec will have like, well, this is my, exactly. Whatever, to make sure it's diverse, or like a passion project. This is the one act I really like. Outside of that small group, you're right. It's all numbers. It's all who can bring the most viewers to our streaming platform. Right. And then that person gets a big check and everybody else can just fuck off. Yeah.
And it is amazing when it's podcast fans coming out, because I'm very good about replying to everybody that writes to me. I get back to.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
great.
you go out to the club and they come up to you after the show, and it really is amazing to see that it's so one-sided when you do a podcast. You're putting it out, and you're not, other than those emails, which are nice to get, it's not the same as like seeing somebody get really fucking excited because they listen to you every week and they know everything about your life. And it's a connection that's not going anywhere.
It's mind-blowing. Like when I first started to see it happen, it took me a long time to get used to. And I had to, constantly remind myself, I'm like, oh yeah, like you have people that listen to you, like you're part of their lives every week. Right. And if you've been part of their lives every week for a couple years now, and then for me, I had this weird thing with Pandora where a lot of them, when they were younger, when they were like teenagers, I have a bunch of albums out there that maybe Comedy Central wouldn't care about after the first couple or whatever, but like they were getting a lot of spins on Pandora. So I had these people, that would come up to me. It's like they've been listening to me since they were 14. On the stand-up side, they grew up with that comedy, and then they started listening to the podcast, and then it was every week for a couple years. Yeah. And it's such a different connection. Right. Then I feel so thankful because when I got to work with Brian Regan, I don't know, 5-6 years, got to open up for him. I just remember thinking, this guy has the career I want. Some part of it where he gets to go to a theater, he gets to have, I don't know, 500 to 2,000 people, whatever, love his comedy. Like love, and this was before the Netflix specials recently. Yeah. And just like they know his bits, they know him so well. They're here for his comedy specifically, not because he's famous, not because he's on a show that they like, because of his comedy. And then later that night, he gets to go across town and go to a bar and not be bothered. Yep. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Yeah. Yeah. That's the perfect situation.
You know what else he does after shows is he'll find out where like the local coffee house comedy show is, or a club, or just like, even like a pop-up show, and he'll just go and he'll do 10 minutes and he'll watch the other comics and have a couple drinks. Yeah. That was actually the best.
He is the best. He's such a good dude. And so funny off stage too. Oh my God. Yeah. But I watched him in Seattle. He did a show in Seattle. It was like 2,000 seat venue, sells it out. And then he went to the Underground downtown, which is a club I worked at early on. John Fox runs it, and it's always been kind of a dump. Yeah. It's just like, it's always, I'm like, how the fuck is this still around? I don't even know if it is around, but it's like always barely hung on. And this was like, I think they were doing like a 3-show Saturday. I want to say it was like some kind of midnight show. It was a late show. Yeah. And it was not full. It was like 50 people scattered around this room. Brian does a guest set, and I just watched him get a standing ovation. Just murder for an hour and 50 minutes. And then he went up and he kind of ate it for about 10 minutes. And it was so inspiring to be like, it happens to all of us. Yeah. Thank God.
Right.
Thank God.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
so
good dude.
Let's dig through. These podcasts that you do. I want to hear about each one of them. There's Time Suck is your main one. That's the flagship.
Yeah, that's the one that launched the others. And Time Suck is, I just like to, like in college, I actually like to do research papers. I love learning about something new. I love getting sucked into a little wormhole and just sitting on my computer. And so the thought behind Time Suck was, well, will other people find what's interesting, what I find interesting? If I could share this information with them, I have the time to research it. Maybe they don't. And it just started off like, random topics, usually dark, because I have a dark sense of humor, but it would be like serial killers or cults or conspiracies.
Dude, did you see the Son of Sam documentary on HBO?
No, but we did a Son of Sam episode, but I have not seen the doc. Yeah, HBO does really good stuff. I just watched their QAnon one, and I watched their QAnon docuseries.
I gotta see that. I saw a little bit of that.
Yeah, I did that when I was researching the QAnon episode. Yeah. But, oh man, no, HBO and Netflix, they have so many good docs.
So you basically, each week you pick a topic and then you spend the week just learning about it on the internet.
Yep. And we have a research team now. So, I have other people do the initial research.
Research team?
Oh yeah, we do deep dives. It's like 25,000 word research papers.
Jesus, really?
Oh yeah, like we have the notes on there. We've had scripts that are up to 30,000 words.
Do you read the script, or do you? Oh, so you're not free talking. You're reading.
Nope. Yeah, I read it, but I've learned how to write how I talk, so I write it conversationally. Right. But it's so dense with information and dates and names that I tried freestyling a little bit in the first couple episodes, and it doesn't work for that concept. And so I look at it like I like to see how good I can get my little research paper each week. It's like a challenge where I don't have that much time to get it to where I want it. And then there's like show mythology. There's weird characters, reoccurring jokes.
Damn.
You know, all that stuff. It's pretty dense and it's pretty weird. Like there's a lot of weird humor where I found with Time Suck, I think why it works is it's not for everybody, but the people who do like it tend to really like it because it's unique.
Do you go into politics at all, or are you kind of wary of things that are divisive?
I am specifically politically, like we've talked about religion, lots of different things. I have talked about politically divisive issues, but I looked at it. I chose not to for the most part on that, just because, especially during the pandemic, Les. But it's like the news feed was so divided. Like there was already so much of that in the media, and I looked at it, and I just don't. I've never gravitated towards politics as much. And I don't want to speak about what I don't know about. Yeah. But you know, like with QAnon, that was an impossible episode to do without discussing politics because it's tied to politics. Right. So like on something like that, we'll have to. Yeah. We did one on the riots, you know, that were happening like this, you know, this past year. Impossible to talk about that, you know, without talking about politics somewhat. I've done immigration, gun control, but for the most part. But I am pretty neutral. Like I'm pretty libertarian on those things. I'm not really like Republican or Democrat. I pick pieces of each. Yeah. And so I think
get feedback from your fans? Do you have to deal with people starting to get heated? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like
how do you deal with that?
It depends on what's written in, but if it's real slanted, I've just learned, I'm like, okay, there's nothing I can say to you to make you happy. Yeah. So I don't get back to those anymore. Right. I used to years ago, but like now I'm just like, I know where this is going to go. Yeah. Like you're so polarized that there's no way I can get you to agree with me. I won't agree with you. So why are we doing this?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But it is interesting. The last year or so, like we talked about that a lot here in our studio about how, you know, it's like, I wouldn't even know what the mines were out in the minefield anymore. I was like so shocked what would trigger people. Like people were so emotional about so many things, so angry. I was like, Jesus Christ. I'm so glad like more people are able to get back to work right now. And that it's starting to calm down. Like they're gonna be busy with other things.
It's like I used to, like everybody, I was addicted to the news, and all it was doing was I wasn't learning anything new. It was just reinforcing things I already believed. I was in my bubble. I was getting irate. I was feeling like the world is out of control and all this shit. And I haven't felt like that since the new administration. I just don't read the news. I just trust that it's not the way it was, so it's just better. Right. And, you know, and I know that like a lot of people, I would imagine that a lot of people on the right feel like socialism is taking over the country. And and I just don't. I just kind of go like, well, we just dealt with your shit for 4 years, and that's how America works. Now it swings the other way for a little while.
Well, and you know what's funny on both sides too? It's like if you get in, whether it's on the left or the right, you get into this echo chamber of, you know, everybody mad about the current president or the people who don't like the current president or whatever. I would always remind myself, like you get on the computer and you read all these things and you see social media and it's just so much like, oh my God, how is this happening? How is this happening? And I would always say like, yeah, but go outside. Go downtown and walk around. Exactly. Does it really seem that bad?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Yep.
You know,
I know.
You know, yeah, it's so funny. Like, and I remember like growing up where I grew up, a lot of conspiracy people in this small town in Idaho. And I've always thought about this.
Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, really hardcore. And like my dad got really worked up about Y2K. There was people when I was in high school talking about the IMF and the One World Order or the New World Order and like the International Monetary Fund and like
Commission,
the Trilateralists, all this shit that were absolutely convinced that America was going to be invaded by no later than 2000. And then like with Time Suck, I study so much history. Like we do conspiracies, we do cults that have existed throughout the decades. Yeah. And I just constantly remind myself that there have been people every single generation. There are so many people who get so fucking worked up and then nothing happens. Yeah. Yeah. So I try to be cognizant of that, where it's like, is there really something to get worked up? Is this really like the Third Reich? Or is this just another normal period of history where people are bitching because that's what people do?
And you realize how much of your life you wasted. You could have gone mountain biking that day. You could have
went
fucking
fishing.
spent time with your child making an art project. And instead you stared at your phone and got angry, and then you were in a bad mood all day.
And that's the thing. It's like, are you going to change anything? And that's what I think about too. It's like, if I'm not willing to take this to the place where I'm going to try to create change in the world, if I'm not going to try to offer a solution, then I'm just wasting my fucking time.
Yep.
You know, then I'm just part of this white noise that's out there. Rah, rah.
Yeah, right.
Pointless.
All right, so I got to start listening to that. And I apologize. Sometimes I listen to people's podcasts before, but I was just just out of town for a week. And
I don't. Yeah,
shit.
no worries. Oh no, you're a busy guy. There's so much content out there. I never expect anyone to have heard anything.
Wait, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 6 podcasts?
No. We do 3 in house. Scared to Death, Time Suck, and Is We Dumb.
Okay.
And then I do one for Parcast called Incredible Feats, but that one's like contractual. That one won't go on forever.
Okay.
And then I have one on Patreon called The Secret Suck that is just on Patreon.
Okay.
But that's like a ancillary podcast to Time Suck. So
How
really,
long does that last?
Oh, that one's a weekly one, like hour and a half a week. We just actually were recording one earlier today.
So what do you think? So that's 4.
So I mean, we do 4 in house, but I feel like one is tied to the other one. But yes, my wife will remind me too. She's like, no, that's not how many you do.
Right.
4.
And then Bad Magic Productions is a production company that you run?
That's like what once it became more than one podcast, we're like, well, we got to have a name. That's what I'd used for like just tax purposes before.
Yeah.
And so now we're, saying that all of them are like if we ever did an outside podcast, if we ever moved up to the level, because we have a staff here now, we're going to get our own space. There's a possibility that someday we might be like a small podcast production company.
Right.
And then that's just a name for that. And we wanted to give our fan.
Yeah. I like it.
It's fun.
Unbelievable, it's fun. Dan Cummins. You're bringing Hollywood out to Idaho.
It's so funny we just did a Zoom call with a production company that I pitched to unsuccessfully many times down in LA. And it's so weird now to be in a position where I'm like, oh man, just give me a show. Just wanted a show so badly for so many years. And then now it's like, I'm 90 seconds away from my house is our studio.
Yep.
And we make a good living. We get to control everything. There's no exec saying like, I don't like it. You got to change this.
Yeah.
And I just told them that in the meeting. I'm like, you guys would have to make us such a fucking awesome deal.
Yeah.
For me to take time away from this.
Yeah.
Right. It's so
good.
We're so lucky to live in an age when that's possible.
All right. So what's the Scared to Death podcast? You do that with your wife?
I do that with my wife, and basically that morphed out of Time Suck, where we did a couple horror-centric episodes early on, like Amityville, like that house.
In Long Island, yeah.
Yeah, in Long Island, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Butch DeFeo, Richard DeFeo Jr., yeah, and then the DeFeo family living there before. But then we also did Shadow People. We did a couple like The Exorcism of Annalise Michelle, but it's a very analytical podcast. And I found that when I was doing like stuff in the paranormal space, it kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Because it was just me picking apart how this can't be real.
Right.
And I'm like, basically, it's like I set up a parade just to shit on it in those episodes.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, that's not fun.
Yeah.
And then I love horror movies, and I loved Stephen King. Still love him, but like as a kid, horror was my love before comedy, and I love like campfire tales, and I love a story that your brain wants to tell you isn't true, but it didn't happen to you. It happened to somebody else. They're saying it's true, and it just gives you the chills. I look at it. Horror is very similar to comedy, where it's like, you're writing comedy, you're hoping to elicit an emotional response of laughter. Horror, you want people to get spooked. You want to have like a physical reaction.
Yeah.
And so that's what Scared to Death is we find all these supposedly true stories, shadow people, exorcisms, poltergeists, whatever. And then I tell them in an attempt to scare my wife, knowing that if I can scare her, I'm scaring the audience.
Right.
And then after a while, fans started sending in their own tales, and now she reads those to me. We do usually like I do 2 stories, she does 2 stories, and it's made me way less skeptical because I think like, okay, even if 99% of these stories are bullshit, if one of these stories is true, what the fuck is going on out there?
Exactly. If we've breached another level of consciousness or being, then who's to say that it's not flooded with us, but we're not detecting it? Like, I always think about, you know, scientifically, that we exist in a very thin parameter of wavelengths, you know, whether it's light or sound or physical touch. Like, we exist in just a fucking sliver of infinity.
Right.
So who's to say that within this same physical space there's not other, So no, I love it. All right, so I'm going to listen to that too, and then what's the other one?
Oh, and Is We Dumb? Is We Dumb is the one that I do with my the audio engineer we have here. He came over from working at this popular rock radio station in the area in Spokane for like 10 years. Funny guy, Joe Paisley. And then he would, on the Secret Suck, he would pop in, and we have this segment of the Patreon podcast called Wackadoodle of the Week, where we find somebody selling crystals, telling you that they will cure cancer, whatever kind of bullshit charlatan claims, and we'll just make fun of them. Like, you know, some crazy video where they say they're an angel light worker or some shit. And it was just like fun rapport. And then I had a segment on Time Suck called Idiots of the Internet, where when I was doing the research, I would watch some documentary. In the comments underneath, just the dumbest comments.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it'd be fun to flush that out and just look at stupidity in general on the web, and in an attempt to maybe try and do less of that. And so we created the show, you know, like Is We Dumb, where we make fun of ourselves for something dumb we did that week. Basically, don't do this. The audience will call us out for doing something really stupid. And then we find just things on the web, just, you know, terrible stories of people just like, oh, how could you think that was okay? Like, what part of you thought that was a good decision? And then I have a little segment in there that I like. I hate petty Yelp reviewers. Like somebody puts all that time and energy into trying to start their business, and then because you ordered the wrong fucking sandwich because you're an idiot, you give them a 1 star.
Which really hurts their business a lot.
It really hurts their business. And so we make fun of them every week too. The 1-star heroes. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right, listen, man. I don't know what else to say. It's just you're busy, and now you're going to go on the road. I got some tour dates I'm going to read for you here. You're going to go off to in August. You're waiting till August to do the road, and you're going to be right there in Spokane on August 8th at the Comedy Club there. 13 and 14 at Hilarities in Cleveland, the 19th in San Antonio, 20th in Houston, 21st in Dallas, 26th through 28th at the Portland, Oregon Helium. I fucking love that club.
Oh, yeah. Such a fun one.
Punchline in Philly, September 9th through the 11th. And other dates available, just go to dancummins.tv. Sadly, dadcummins.com, if you want to buy a Chevrolet, you're in luck.
That's why I have the dumb extension. That's that guy took everything. He got all the cool social media.
That sucks.
Yeah, and every time something new comes out, he nabs it. I can't compete with the Chevrolet.
Really?
The only fun intersection I had with them is I've been annoyed that they took everything for years. And then one time, it was on Facebook, somebody hit me up thinking that they were communicating with the Chevrolet people. And I so wish I could have been there when this guy inevitably showed up at the dealership.
Yeah.
Because I just took him on this ride where he was like, hey, something about like, you got any Silverados? You know, when he's looking for like this year range. And I'm like, hell yeah, I do, buddy. I'm like, I gave him an insane price. I'm like, if you can get down here the next 2 hours, I'll give you a 2013 Silverado, fully loaded, $2,500 cash. He's like, are you serious? Hell yeah, I'm serious, buddy. I never heard how it ended.
No money down, and you know that clear coat's on the house, brother.
Right, exactly. Oh my God, this is a dream come true. I just picture that guy running into that, poor dealership, being like, "All right, man, I'm here." They're like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah, that's fucking great. All right, man. Well, listen, thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for having me, Greg. A big fan, man. I've known about you for a long time, and I got to say, Pat House, a guy who opens up for me a lot when touring. He worships you, so he's so jealous that I'm like, oh my God.
I'm doing his podcast tomorrow.
I just set him up terribly now. He's gonna hate that I said that.
That's very nice. That's very nice to hear. Yeah.
Well, get ready for some hero worship.
I love it. I always love a little hero worship.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.